Hello and welcome back to my small library. Let's talk about all of the books that I read in May. It was 13 in total, which I'm really happy about. And yeah, most of them were actually for my physical TBR, which I'm so proud of. I got my physical TBR down 12 books in the last month, which is by far the most I have ever done. In a month, most other times I have just like listened to more audiobooks that I didn't have on my physical TBR. This month I managed to get 12 books off of my physical TBR, which means I'm actually getting, nearer the goal of getting my physical TBR to under 200 books. So yeah, let's start with the first three books kind of. We have three Franzi and I novels. These are number 16, 17, and 18 from the Kathy Rice Temperance Brennan series. So yeah, these are the last ones I have from the series in physical form. So I finished those off at the beginning of the month, and the first one is Bones of the Lost. This one was actually really interesting. I gave it 4 stars. I really liked the story of it. This is pretty much connected, like we have two seemingly unconnected things. We have a girl who is left after a hit and run, and she seems to be an illegal immigrant, and so some people are not treating her very nicely, but Temperance really stands in for her. And then we have another case of some smuggled dog mummies that Temperance also gets because she does work, also on like mummified things general, not only human bones. And so these two seemingly unconnected things bring together a pretty big case, and a pretty tragic case all in all, of like, things that go on still, like sex trafficking, murder, obviously illegal importation of cultural goods, and all of that. And yeah, that was really interesting. I really liked the case. So yeah, 4 stars for this one. I was really happy with that one. Then we have one that I liked it also. I gave it also 4 stars. I think it's a little bit less great than the one before, but it was still really an interesting thriller. And this one is pretty much where there are girls that are dying, and Temperance, sees these cases and is like, well, they feel really similar. And then they start investigating the cases, and it turns out the killer actually is somebody who Temperance already found out as a killer, like in an older case, and she got away that time. And now she's out there again, and Temperance needs to race against the clock pretty much to find out how she had escaped, where is she, what has happened. And yeah, the case gets a little bit more complicated after that, with some interesting like plot twists around the corner. But yeah, I really liked it. I think it's also one of the better ones. Like these last 3 ones were a lot better again than the middle ones. And then we have the 18th one, which is Speaking in Bones. And this one I think has a little bit more sensitive topics for some people. But yeah, it has to do with cults and religion, and she pretty much web sleuth, like, somebody who investigates crimes in their own free time online and in web forums and stuff, comes to Temperance and is like, I have this recording, I'm pretty sure that that is a girl that has gone missing such and such time again, but there isn't a missing person record because the family said she ran away. And the Temperance is like really skeptical at the beginning for obviously reasons, and then there is like, she, for some reason, she goes to some place I don't remember anymore, but yeah, they find a skeleton, and the investigation starts from there. The skeleton doesn't really, like, it's really fragmented. They only find small fragments here and there, and so she is really skeptical to this web sleuth, and then she tries to investigate together with the with an officer from like the county which she goes, and so she starts the investigation. And this one has some really heavy plot twists, I feel like, that do work out in the end, but they were really like, you sure? So yeah, I mean, it was really interesting because it kind of brings, modern age into Temperance Man, which I feel like even though these books are a lot more modern than the beginning of the series, obviously, I feel like technology and like the internet always had like a relatively back burner kind of thing, like they weren't really that important, and this one really brings in our current climate of like true crime podcasts and people who look into things. And if you there was this one Netflix series where like an online forum, they investigated somebody who did bad things to cats, and they solved a murder because of that, or like they pretty much brought attention to it, and this brings this into it, which made it really, really interesting, and also a 4-star novel. So yeah, the last 3 that I read in that series I really, really liked. The middle wasn't as good, the beginning of the series also really, really good, so the middle of the series kind of had middle book syndrome. But yeah, so this is where I started my month. Then I actually allowed myself to go book shopping, and I brought home 4 books. And the first of those I finished reading directly, and that is The Wonderful Visit of Oz in this really, really, really pretty edition. It's by L. Frank Baum, if you didn't know. And it is this illustrated edition with pop-ups, so you can like pop these things up and have like more of an interactive edition of the book. And yeah, it looks incredibly pretty. Let me show you. I love these versions. I feel like I'm not the like super biggest fan of classics all the time, but if you give them to me in such pretty editions, I really love reading them. So yeah, I gave it 4 stars. This is obviously a children's story. I mean, if you read this one, you know what it's about. The movies are really, really popular. The new one is coming out right now. When I was in school, we actually went and watched the Wicked musical with my music teacher, which was really, really great. So yeah, I do know the story, obviously, quite a bit. And I felt like this edition is like a really, really great edition to own of the story, because it is a rather short story. And having all of these lovely illustrations while going like through the story was really, really great. So I feel like, especially if you maybe have children or something like that, these versions are really, really wonderful. They are by Mina Lima. They also have a website where they have a lot more of these. I was tempted to buy the Alice in Wonderland one, but I do own that book 3 times, so I refrained from getting that and got myself the Wizard of Oz. So yeah, 4 stars for that book as well. I really like the story. I mean, it's not perfect, and it's obviously a children's story, but it is a nice story. Then we have the only book that I listened to purely, and that is called Shadow Man, an elusive psycho killer and the birth of the FBI profiling, and that is actually exactly what it is. I gave it 4 stars. It's by Ron Freskel. Frenzel. And yeah, he talks about the beginning of the FBI investigating a mysterious killer, and kind of what they did, how profiling got into it, and the mistakes they made and what they learned from them. It was a really insightful book that not only looks at the positive side of things, but that also talks about the mistakes they made in the beginning and how it wasn't really that thought out completely, but it had really, really good beginnings, and they could use it already a little bit and stuff like that. It was really interesting. It's one of those more like of those true crime books that don't care about the killer in the story, but they care about the victims and the work with the family and how they caught him and all of that. So that was really, really interesting. I need to talk faster because this video is already getting long. And then the next one is the Illumicrate horror box read, and that was Murder Road. I got the 3 stars. I didn't love it. I felt really neutral about the book. It is pretty much our main characters going on a road trip to their honeymoon. Both of them have pretty dark histories with their families and stuff. But one of them has an orphan story, and the other one has a crazy parent story and abuse story, which they haven't told each other about completely. They do know parts of each other, but they don't know the full picture. And yeah, they get to like nearly where they want to go, and then they pick up a hitchhiking girl who was obviously hurt, and they bring her to a hospital, and there the police thinks they did it for some reason because it's so logical to bring the girl to the hospital, whatever. And so they have to stay and they start investigating on their own. This is a supernatural thriller, I would say. It isn't really that much horror in my opinion. Yeah, I like the concept of the story, but I felt really neutral about the characters, which made it harder to, you know, get more into this. Also, it is supernatural, but the supernatural is such a small part that it could have like not been there, and it wouldn't really have made that much of a difference to most of the book. So yeah, I don't know. But I do really like the cover, I have to say. The original cover is really ugly in my opinion, and this cover is really, really great. I totally forgot. Murder Road is by Simone St. James, which I haven't read anything else from, I think. Then I finally read the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin, and I didn't like it. I gave it 2 stars. I don't like the perspective the book is written from, especially the stone woman. What is her name? Oh, I already forgot because, to be honest, I really didn't care about the characters. But the woman where the husband killed her son because he is one of those magic users. Yeah, her perspective was just really, really off for me. Reading her talking in the third person about herself, really, really weird. I didn't mesh with that. I didn't really care for the characters. I had a lot of problems with the story that just parts of the story just weren't for me. Like, I felt like so much of the book could have been done without part of the story that weren't really important but were forced upon it to make the world look more bleak and worse. And that is, I don't know how I like that, to be honest. I get why people love it, but I'm definitely not part of the people who should read this, to be honest. Yeah, if you want to know more about it, because to be honest, I forgot a lot about it already, just look up reviews online. It has really, really good reviews, but I just did not mesh with it. Then we have another 3-star read, and that is the next Terry Pratchett in this series. I don't know, pretty far now. It's going postal. This is part of the Industrial Revolution collection, a collection which I personally really don't love that much. This one I also felt relatively neutral about. It is a story about delivering post, and the main character that gets to be the postmaster is pretty much at the brink of being executed, and then Lord Veterinary things and is like, well, I could just put you as postmaster instead of executing you. And that is exactly what he does, and then things go absolutely wrong from there, like typical Terry Pratchett. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I felt like it was kind of a neutral story. It had a little bit less of the humor, I felt like, and a little bit more chaos than the usual books. But yeah, I do prefer a lot of the other characters in the Terry Pratchett universe, you know. Then we have the book I think I felt like the most emotions about this month, and that is The Paleontologist by Luke Dumas. And yeah, this book brought out all of the emotions in me. This is kind of also a supernatural horror book. This one was a little bit more scary, but not like scary. And yeah, the main story is pretty much that our main character, he is a paleontologist and he seeks a new job, and for that job he goes back to his childhood town and works in the museum there. The thing is, his half-sister actually vanished from that museum like a really, really long time ago, and he has really, really bad feelings about the city and stuff, but he feels like, you know, it's time to confront things and to just find peace, kind of, because he came from a really, really shitty upbringing. And so yeah, he goes there, and then things in the museum start going wrong, and he, yeah, kind of, his life goes off the rails, just like point blank. He kind of gets, but his mental health isn't like the best throughout the novel, and it feels really, really realistic, like the way it's portrayed and how he goes more into paranoia and madness and stuff. And then the ending comes, and it's all kind of really, really funny and cool and scary and kind of impressive. And yeah, I really love the book. It has a little bit of a dip in the middle, which is why I gave it 4 stars. The beginning is really, really good, and the ending is really, really good. But the middle, like 100 pages, I was like, oh, this could be better. This is like a little bit too slow for my liking for a book that is, a horror book. Or supposed to be a horror book, a thriller, bringing supernatural into the story. Like, I felt like it could have been a little bit more better paced, I feel like, because the ending was really, really good, but the pacing it was, and the beginning as well. And yeah, I really loved this book. I worked as an intern in a museum, but like backstage, not like in the actual museum part. And I really loved doing that, and this brought out so many emotions. Like, museums can be really, really creepy when you're in there and it's dark and stuff. So yeah, I feel like if you like archaeology, especially dinosaurs, paleontology, and you kind of want a little bit of a supernatural thriller that brings dinosaurs and humans together, and also portrayals like a mental health journey, kind of, go with this one. I really loved it, and I feel like you can't really do much wrong with that. Then, another book I really didn't like, but I was also not surprised I didn't like, was The Winds of Morning, which is the third book in the second Mistborn trilogy. I didn't like the first and the second, so yeah, I obviously didn't like the third, but I already owned it, so I read it. I won't say much. It's like technically the sixth book in the series, so yeah, I won't talk about the things that happen in the book. I just don't like the settings, I don't like the characters, and this is really the only trilogy out of all of the stuff from Brandon Sanderson I've read so far that I cannot stand. And yeah, I don't know. I just don't like Western. And that is actually like Western steampunk doesn't really seem to mesh with me, and so yeah, it didn't really work out to read the book. Then we have two other Kathy Rice books. These are both standalones, as far as I know. This might be the beginning of a series, but I only have read this one, so for me it's more of a standalone. And I give it 2 stars, so I also won't go back to read more of this. This is pretty much it's called Virals, and it is the main character is Temperance Brennan's niece. It's the daughter of his nephew, of her nephew, and yeah, she came pretty late into the life of Kit, her nephew. And so, yeah, they live on an island at a military research, like, it's a research station from a university in an old military compound. And there are some experiments, and yeah, she is obviously really nosy, and she wants to know what's going on. And it goes into the supernatural. It's really weird. It is written for teenagers. It didn't feel like it was written by Kathy Rice. That was kind of my biggest problem. It felt so generic and nondescript teenage novel that I couldn't even make out. If you wouldn't have told me that it's by Kathy Rice, I wouldn't have known. Simple like that. So yeah, I wasn't impressed with that one. And then the second one is Too Nice. This is like a complete standalone. This is an adult novel. I gave it 3 stars. I did like this much more than Virals. But I felt like the ending was so annoying that it kind of ruined the beginning of the book, and I really liked the beginning of the book. Like, the main topic is we have a cop, an ex-cop, who got disabled, like, in the line of duty. She lost like 30% of her vision in one eye and got like a big scar and stuff. And because of that, she misjudged a situation at work and she shot somebody. And so the police was kind of, and like, either you go or you get on desk duty, and she didn't want to get stuck with desk duty, and so she's like, you know what, I'm gonna go. And then she gets contacted by a woman who is like really old to clear the case of her daughter or her granddaughter going missing, because her daughter and her 2 children were at a Jewish school and they got killed, like the daughter of her and the grandson, and the granddaughter got kidnapped by the people who did that. And so our main character is tasked with finding out what happens. What annoyed me the most about the whole story, except for that I felt like the life story of our main character would have been a way more interesting book than the story itself, was the fact that everything for like 2/3 of the book was just like gut feeling. and there was no evidence. And I feel like what really makes Kathy Rice books stand out for me is that they are so evidence heavy and science heavy, and this one was just none of that, and I didn't enjoy that from her. And then also I didn't really like the story. I felt like her backstory, which you get throughout the book, was way more interesting. There was a plot twist that I also didn't like. So yeah, I went with 3 stars. You know, I don't think it's a bad book. I wouldn't pick it up again. It is what it is in the end. So yeah, what can you do, right? And then we have the last book I've read in May, and this one is also a 2-star read. So we have a really mixed month, I feel like. And this one is The Ivory Key by Akshaya Raman. Hopefully I taught that right. Yeah, this one is pretty much for teenagers. Their parents died. They have to rule their kingdom. You have the one sister, the oldest one, who is now the queen, like the equivalent to a queen. Then you have one of the brothers is sitting in jail because reasons that I won't spoil. Then you have one brother who's trying to get his other brother out of jail, and then you have the sister who ran away and is now living with the rebels in the woods. And you get everyone's perspective, and they are teenagers, they squabble like teenagers, but they forgive each other so easily. It is so weird. And then all of them are really two-dimensional. They pretty much only fulfill the role that they get given at the beginning of the book, and then they reconcile way too easily. Like they don't, like they start at the beginning of the book if they're like really like big problems between them, and then they are solved incredibly easily, which without much conflict, which is just so weird. And yeah, I don't know, I felt like this one is obviously also a teenager novel, and I just felt like I didn't mesh with the concept of the story. I really liked the setting, I liked the Indian inspired stuff. It was really different fantasy, I really liked that, but the characters in the story just didn't work for me at all. So yeah, sadly only 2 stars. I personally wouldn't really recommend it, but the setting is cool. So, you know, if you get more from setting than characters, maybe it would work for you. If you love a more character focused, I would say just maybe don't. Yeah, but for like teenagers, I could see why, you know, if you are actively in the sibling squabbles. Like, I also have 3 siblings, but yeah, I don't talk to half of them. So, these squabbles in here are so easily resolved. It's just weird. So yeah, that were all of the books I've read in May. I'm really happy with all that I have read, even though they were obviously really well, I think I had more bad books than good books, if you're honest. But I feel like I have gotten through so much, and I really enjoyed this month reading all of the different genres and the different types of books and settings, and yeah, that was really great. So thank you for watching. If you've read any of these and want to leave your opinion down below, please do that, and hopefully I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!